Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be comparing a Dodge Durango RT to a Ford Explorer ST, and we're going to decide which high-performance third-row SUV is the best route to go. Before we get in the video though, I do want to mention if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get right into the video. Starting under the hood of the Explorer, we have a turbocharged 3-liter V6 that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 400 horsepower and then 415 pound-feet of torque. Towing capacity, 5,600 pounds with the ST package. So definitely a solid setup. Now, popping over to the Durango RT, we have a naturally aspirated 5.7-liter V8 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 360 horsepower and then 390 pound-feet of torque. Towing capacity with the Durango is quite a bit more, 7,400 pounds. So that's what the Hemi power gets you. So going over the front end of the Explorer ST, again, this is like the sporty package on the Explorer. So I noticed that the Explorer emblem blacked out. You can see the headlight bezel also darker in coloration. Still the same daytime running light that you have with other Explorers. And then you guys can see here with the fog light down below, and then notice the parking sensors there on the front end. And then you can see the grille, how that's all blacked out as well with the Ford logo in the center. They didn't change the Ford logo though, interestingly enough. And then notice the trim at the bottom also blacked out, and then you got the parking sensors at the very bottom. And yeah, overall, I think it's a cool looking sporty vehicle. Now popping over to the Durango. You guys can see here we've got the sport hood that comes with the RT. You can also put this on like a GT now. It's like, you know what, we're just going to give the sporty looks to every vehicle no matter what it is. You can see there with the daytime running lights and the new headlights, definitely a cool design. And then you got the performance front fascia, which comes on every single package with the Durango now, so it doesn't feel special like it used to. Fog lights there at the bottom, parking sensors, all that normal stuff. But despite my comment there about the specialness, I still think it's a cool looking vehicle from a front end perspective. I think that Dodge has done a good job with the styling. Now popping over to the Explorer, they go for the very large sporty wheel design here. So you guys can see pretty big wheels, lower profile tires. But again, that's pretty standard setup on a sporty vehicle. But the wheels kind of make the brake rotors and calipers look sort of small because of how big they are. And this does have upgraded brakes for the ST package, but it's not like they're huge like you'd see on a super high-end performance car. Anyways, notice the mirrors are blacked out, pillars as well, and between the red brake calipers and the blacked out accenting, I think it looks great from a side view perspective. Big wheels on the Durango too. The wheel to brake rotor proportion, whatever you want to call it, doesn't look as bad on the Durango as it does on the Explorer, but you don't have cool red brake calipers. I think that Dodge needs to start doing colored calipers on the Durango, even though it's kind of gimmicky. I don't know, I like it. It just makes it feel sportier. Got the Hemi badge, and then you guys can see everything's blacked out there on the side. And I don't know, I've seen so many people paint their brake calipers, so it's like just charge $500 for it as a factory option, and people will pay up, and then they can make more money. You guys can see there with the remote start on the key fob, and then also opening up the hatch as well. Pretty cool setup. And then popping here into the rear, you guys can see here with all of the mats and everything there in the back. And then notice the storage space underneath as well. And then you guys can see with the seats, you can lower them down, which is great. And also raise up the third row. So the second row you can just lower down, but the third row you can raise and lower. So it's kind of a nice luxury feature. And then you got the 12 volt there in the back as well. And then some storage space there on the side, which is kind of random, but it's cool that it has it, right? And yeah, that's pretty much the back of the ST. And then you can see there with the hatch, you can lower that down, which is another cool little function. And then finishing things up here with the rear, you guys will notice first off with the taillights, that C shape. It's kind of like a Ford signature where they have C-shaped lights on a bunch of different vehicles. And then notice with the exhaust tips, you got two on either side, which again kind of gives it a cool sporty appearance. Receiver hitch there in the center. It's always funny when you see like sporty exhaust tips and then receiver hitch. It's It's always interesting. And then you got the Explorer emblem there as well. And yeah, that's pretty much everything for the rear. Popping over to the Durango, you guys can see functionality on the key fob's the same as we have on the Ford, so remote start. And you got the tailgate raise and all, well, I should say hatch rather, because it's an SUV raise. And you guys can see also you can press a button there if you want to open it up. But notice here with the storage space there behind the seats, it seems like it's pretty equal, but the Explorer almost feels like more spacious behind the third row. Now the one thing that's a downside about the Durango is the seats are manual, all of them, for the like toss down function, so you don't have like a button that you can press to raise and lower it, so you do have to raise and lower it yourself. And so that is a little bit of a downside from a feature perspective, but I'm sure some of you will be commenting, well, that's one less thing to break. Fair enough on that. And then you can see here with the hatch lowering down, notice with the Durango you got the cool light bar there on the back end, which is, kind of like a distinctive style cue, but at this point, I mean, they've had that light bar since like 2014 for model years, so it's kind of interesting. Dual outlet exhaust tips, receiver hitch there in the center, but notice the receiver hitch is covered by a bezel, so it kind of cleans up the rear styling a little bit. And that's just give you guys kind of like a size comparison with the Durango compared to like a truck. Now, interior, this is where things get kind of interesting. So notice with the padding there and the stitching here with the Explorer ST, I think it would have been cool if they did like a bunch of red stitching throughout. But notice the sunshade right there, and then you can see the darker trim there that goes to the cup holder area. And then notice the seats again. I think the seats look great in the Explorer ST. It just, again, would have been cool if they did red stitching. It kind of would have, I don't know, just accented things a little bit nicer. And again, that's kind of the ST package, is you've got the red all throughout. And then you guys can see here, popping in, and this one I still did the talking there, which is funny, but it's pretty solid from a space perspective for the second row. And then notice here with the climate controls there in the back, and then heated seats as well. And you got some cup holders there in the center portion. And then notice here with the third row, you got like the little storage cubby. Now, just like other SUVs in this segment, typically reserve third row for kids. You can fit adults back there in a pinch, but it's not a comfortable place for adults. It's just the size of SUV that it is. Popping over to the Durango, you can see here with the door panel, look at the trim pieces and red stitching. So again, just look how it makes it pop just a little bit more. Same thing with the seats as well. Notice there with the Dodge logo in the center, and then you can see there with the red stitching on the side. And then you got a bunch of seat adjustments just like the Explorer. And room is actually pretty similar. I think I had the front seat pushed really, I had it really far back, so that's not exactly fair to the Durango. You can see what the space would actually be if I had sat in the other seat. Power outlets, or power outlet, and then some USBs, and then heated seats in the back as well. And then same thing with the third row for the Durango. There is a little like cup holder back there, so they are both practical from a third row perspective for the kids that are going to be in the rear. And then notice the climate controls are here at the top, and pay close attention to the headliner, because the Durango has a nice premium headliner that the Explorer, well, you'll see what the Explorer has. Now here's the door panel, the front of the Explorer, so notice the theme continues here to the front from a panel perspective. And then there's a quick look at the door handle. I actually like the door handle on the Fords. I like how they do 3 different settings for the memory seats. Got all the window controls, mirrors, they do power fold in, and you can see another speaker there for the sound system, and then down below. And then here is the front seat. So like I said, just look at the seat. It looks really cool, but imagine with the red stitching, look even cooler. Got your power adjustments there, and then the pedal layout here at the bottom. And then notice here with the double pull for the Explorer. That's a cool feature to have because it makes it easier, because you just go over the hood and then you just lift it up instead of having to find a latch. Steering wheel is power adjustable. That's another important feature to talk about. And then popping back over to the Durango, again, notice that trim piece, and then again with the red stitching, which kind of makes it look a little bit cooler. Got all your window controls there. Mirrors do not power fold in here with the Durango. 2 settings for the memory seats. And this quick look at the mirrors. And then you guys are probably wondering sound systems. I like them both for different reasons, but I think they're both solid sound systems. I don't think you'd have complaints one way or the other. They're not like super high and premium where you're going to have like perfect crisp clarity, but they're solid. And then notice again with the stitching and the padding there on the dash as well with the Durango. Popping back over to the Explorer, you can see the startup animation here, which is another kind of cool little thing the Explorer has. Now notice here with the steering wheel, from a material standpoint and from a design standpoint as well. I'm sure they're going to change this in the near future with the Explorer. But anyways, you guys can see here with the controls there on the side of the steering wheel, and then also notice with the cruise control, steering assistance, got your voice command, volume controls, you know, all that normal stuff. And then paddle shifters there in the back for that 10-speed automatic, and then you got your turn signal, and then your windshield wiper stock, normal stuff. And I like how Ford has like separate stocks. It's kind of interesting. Now, full digital gauge cluster, and it's cool, I think. So from an aesthetic perspective, it's pretty neutral. Ford's been putting full digital gauge clusters in pretty much all their new vehicles now, and so it's just kind of par for the course as to the direction that they are going. It's pretty customizable. You can see how you can set it to like the column screen, for example, so that it doesn't show a bunch of information and overwhelm you, I suppose is what Ford is thinking. Got a bunch of different drive modes with the Explorer. Main thing, sport, normal, and then you might tow haul mode as well. You know, there's some other modes as well, but those are the main ones that you guys are probably going to spend the most time with. They got cool animations. Now here's the tablet infotainment system, which has been pretty controversial, to say the least. The one thing I don't like about vertical infotainment systems that I've mentioned prior on the channel is, you guys can see the camera view, like the resolution's great, but the actual view is pretty small because it only takes up the top portion of the screen. So I think horizontal is the way to go for automakers. But notice you got that shortcut bar there at the bottom that you can scroll through a bunch of different menus. Now the cool thing about the Explorer ST is that it has massaging seats. So yes, it is a crazy sporty third row SUV, but you can also get a massage. So that's another nice little luxury feature. And to notice all the different types of massages. It's funny that they have like all these different things, and it's like they feel different, but they're not like drastically different. Ambient lighting too. So another nice luxury feature to kind of set the tone. Of course, you got to do red because it matches the ST, and you got to make up for the lack of red stitching throughout the interior there. But solid infotainment system overall with the ST. And then down below, you can see here with the radio controls, and then from a climate perspective, you've got heated, cooled seats, heated steering wheel, dual zone climate. Well, tri-zone technically because you have the climate zone in the rear, but both vehicles have that whole setup with the climate zone in the rear. Pretty easy system to use overall, and I'm glad that they still have analog controls, because that's something that some automakers have been getting rid of, is the analog climate controls, and it's just it's not a route that I would recommend. And then you can see that trim there. It's kind of interesting that goes across the dash. Ford does a lot of trim pieces that don't necessarily like feel nice, but they just try to go for a certain aesthetic. And then you can see there with the charging ports, and then notice with the shifter there, the 10-speed automatic, it has the manual mode. So again, dial shifter, again, another thing that Ford's kind of put in several of their cars. Parking brake, you got your auto hold, and then your drive mode select, and then notice auto stop start, then your parking assistance, hill descent control, and then you can see there with the stability control. Wireless phone charger, it's always an interesting place in the Explorer. And then notice the center console, it's got nice padding on it. Storage space is pretty good as well. You got the little like ledge there that fell in, funny enough. And then glove box, normal from a storage space perspective. It's practical. It's not like awkwardly small. And the sunglass holder. And like I said, to mention the headliner. So it's just like regular cloth. And then you do have a panoramic sunroof, which again is another nice luxury feature. So you can let a bunch of light into the cabin. And definitely something that the Durango needs to add that it doesn't have yet. The new Grand Cherokee L has it, but obviously that's not what this comparison is about. Now here's the startup with the Durango. Pretty fun. Now notice with the steering wheel, from a material standpoint, right, pretty similar. Notice perforated on the sides, so you can get a better grip. Paddle shifters are definitely nicer on the Durango in terms of the look and feel. And then notice adaptive cruise control, voice command controls for the center stack. There are radio controls on the back also. And then it's your turn signal, windshield wiper stock all in one, because you have different switch for the light stuff. And then we've got like, you know, analog on either side, and then you've got that screen there in the center to show you different bits of information on the Durango. So not as much of a futuristic looking gauge cluster, but again, some of you might like this, and I'm sure again some of you are gonna be like, well, one less thing to break, because it's not just a giant screen. You do have a sport mode, so got that going for it. Now guess what? Horizontal infotainment system. So look at the camera view, and this is funny because The camera resolution with the Durango is not as good as the Explorer, and you don't have as many camera views, but like bigger view because bigger screen. Well, the screen's about the same size, but having it horizontal instead of vertical. Notice heated, cooled seats, heated steering wheel, again, tri-zone climate, so they're the same from that feature perspective. And then you've got the headrest fold, which is always important, so that, like I say in the reviews, if your kid's being annoying, you can smack them in the head with the little headrest. Analog controls there for the climate system, and then also for the seats, the steering wheel, and then you got like your drive mode select. Interesting that it doesn't have like a specific tow haul mode. I've always thought that's kind of unique. If you get the tow package of the Durango, you do get trailer brake controls though. Notice wireless phone charger, and then you get a real shifter, not a dial shifter. You do have the low range too, which you can use for off-roading or if you need to back a heavy trailer up a steep driveway. And then you can see there with the center console has like the double function. Not as big as the Explorer though. And then notice the red stitching there. And then also the dash. They've definitely, brought up the interior with the Durango to make it look a little bit nicer. Got another outlet there. And then the glove box. And then again, with the headliner and sunroof situation, headliner's nicer, but sunroof is smaller. So you have that kind of going against the Durango from a sunroof perspective. Again, I really like the aesthetic of the headliner. It just makes it look a lot more upscale, a lot more premium. Now you guys are probably wondering, from a price perspective, they're both low 60s depending on exactly how you option them out. I mean, you can have them in the $50,000 range if you have them less optioned out, but these two are low 60s with how they're spec'd out. So really it's two completely different vehicles, right? It's same segment, but you've got a naturally aspirated V8 versus a turbocharged V6. So, well, pick which one you like more from that perspective. Durango tows more. From a fuel economy perspective, there's not as big of a difference as you would think with both the engines. Once you get into those turbos with the Explorer, especially while towing, fuel economy drops quite a bit. So definitely take that into account. Exterior styling, that's subjective. I think they both have cool sporty appearances. There's things that change on both of them slightly. And then interior, same thing. I think they both have pretty nice interiors considering the segment. I wish the Explorer had more red throughout the interior, right? To go along with that ST package. And also Durango, right? I wish I had a panoramic sunroof. But yeah, again, ultimately, I think that, people are just going to be pretty, on one side or the other with this particular comparison. They're either going to be Ford people or they're going to be Dodge people. But I think it's pretty interesting to see just how close these are, but then also how different they are from each other. But let me know which one you guys would pick.